He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
Special edition, Angry Mortgage. We do a few of these, and here we are. My special guest, Frances Hinojosa, the founders of Tribe Financial, big mortgage brokerage here in Ontario. You other provinces, Fran? I don't know.
No, we're not. Just Ontario.
And longtime friend. I remember when I first met Fran. She approached me. I don't think she stalked me.
Did I really?
She approached me at an event. She said, "You're Ron Butler. I want to talk to you." But that's Fran. She meets people. She is important in the industry because she really contributes. Fran contributes a lot to the mortgage brokerage industry, and we're happy to have her here today. What we're going to do today is talk about what goes on inside a mortgage, because Fran, with her partners, runs a mortgage brokerage, and what goes on inside a mortgage brokerage as it relates to the consumer, because that's kind of important. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on today. We're going to cover some ground, but it's the real important thing. It's how we as companies relate to our customers, the borrowers. Okay. Anyway, welcome, Fran.
Thank you, Ron. I'm really excited to be here. You know that? Because most people don't know. I don't know if many people know how close friends we are with one another. And we do talk all the time, which I cherish those conversations tremendously. I know I make you a little wiggy every time I say it. I think I tell you I love you so many times. You're like, please stop, Frances. But anyone that knows me knows me. That's just who I am.
Please stop.
Please stop. Please stop, Fran. Please stop. But I think this is going to be a great conversation, because this is like people looking into you and I talking on a regular basis, and what we riff on, and how we come up with ideas, and tying that all in there. And I've been a big proponent of this in the industry. Is talking about relationships and how collaboration matters in this industry, and how learning from each other matters in this industry, and how I've been really lucky in my career to meet so many people along the way that has contributed to my success and my growth. And that's what it's all about, is connecting with people.
Now, two things. I'm going to swear as much as I usually do. But,
I know.
But Fran can decide how much she wants to grow. Now, I know Frances swears, okay, but I'm gonna let her pick her own spot, okay, in that. So she may not be as angry as me. I'm sure I'll find something to be angry about by the end of the pod. But normally Fran has a better soul than mine, and less angry, less belligerent. Okay.
Less angry, probably. I think my core is too gushy and too lovey sometimes, but I have my moments where I can riff off with the swear words, and I think I've just learned over the years to how to buffer it through these conversations. It's almost like a switch in my brain goes off that shuts off those words. But my girls are listening to this. They would be like, bullshit. Like, mom swears all the time in the house. I think swear words were embedded into my vocabulary going back to even as a kid. And what most people don't realize is I grew up in the construction industry. So that's pretty much where I got, the pouty mouth, because they don't buffer anything there.
Frances, are you trying to tell me that they're fucking swearing in the construction industry?
They are fucking swearing in the construction industry. They did not give a shit. There was a 6-year-old sitting there on the construction site at any given point in time, right?
I might have heard that. I might have heard that. By the way, there's probably some born again Christian construction guys who never swear at all.
No, Ron, I'll call bullshit on that. I'll tell you, I grew up on a construction site.
They're all swearing.
Prayed on Sunday, confessed their sins all the time, all the fucking time.
I got you.
Yep.
So, again, Fran has been doing it a long time. How long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been doing lending for 30 years now.
Jesus, you started when you were 14.
No,
Did they let you in the bank?
I love you.
Did they let you in the bank when you're 14?
It's called good genes and good doctors and good creams. That's what it's called about. I did start very early.
I think it's some kind of child labor wrong thing that BMO did all those years ago. You were like a part-time teller as a teenager.
It was a fake. It was a fake ID that
fake
I did.
ID did it.
Fake ID did it. I did start as a part-time teller. I did start there.
So there's more use to fake ID than just buying liquor. Okay?
It is. It's getting a job at Bank of Montreal. Sorry, BMO, on that. Yes, I did lie.
Gotcha.
Yes,
you did lie. Okay, good. So now, Fran, what do we? I talk all the time about how fucked up the housing situation is in major centers across Canada, about how bad it is for people who want to buy a home, for young people who want to buy a home, average earners who want to buy a home in southwestern Ontario and certainly most of British Columbia, how just bad it is, like how hard it is, how the basic unfairness of the kind of prices we're faced with. And you see that not only in your own personal practice, but you see that as a business owner. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree that we're in a transitional period right now when it comes to the housing market. I'll say it.
So we're transitioning to more fuckery? I mean, what are we transitioning to here?
No. We've always had fuckery that's there, but I think it's a matter of looking at what are the options and what are the opportunities out there. I think as mortgage brokers, we have gotten so accustomed to the fast and furiousness of the housing market and just instant approvals based on different parameters. But I feel that there is opportunities there if we sit down with the consumer and comprise a plan for them for their long-term solution. Does not necessarily mean that some homeowners will get into properties today, but it's building that plan and that possibility of how they can get into home ownership and when they can get into home ownership and what are those game plans. It's not the instant transaction. And I think we forgot that.
I got to ask you this important question.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be part of the planning while you're in the womb, like literally at conception? You need to start planning at conception because you need to make fucking sure your parents are rich or own a home for 30 years or some goddamn thing because you're going to need generational wealth for a down payment, right?
I will disagree. I will respectfully disagree with you. Right. I think that there is options out there. I'm cognizant of the fact that there are cracks and there's trouble in the housing market. You talk about it all the time about, lack of inventory that's out there. I'm not going to discount that. That is a reality. But I think if you do want to become a homeowner, you got to figure out how to get in there and make those plans. And start early. I mean, some of it
start in the womb. You better start in the womb. You better have the right parents, for the love of Christ. Okay, that's what you need. You got to start at conception. You got to as you're a sperm jumping out there. You got to be thinking about. I hope this egg. I hope the parents. I hope the egg's parents have money or have owned a home for a long time, or else I'm literally fucked during the fucking. Okay,
no,
that's true.
Ron, I'll tell you when I started in banking, I started in lending at a very young age. It was probably about 20 years old when I started with the bank. 14,
yeah.
14, 20. 20 was the ID, okay?
All right.
That's what the ID said. It was 20. So, when I started, the narrative was very much the same. And I know people say, well, housing prices were different. It was a different time, yada, yada, yada. But there was always that narrative, and I've seen it over the last 30 years where people have always said, too hard to buy your first house, too hard to buy your first house. The only time I didn't hear that narrative is when interest rates were obviously at a record low because people look at their affordability. Mm-hmm. But I think it comes back to is buying what you can afford. And I'm not saying that everyone can afford things, Ron. It's a hard argument both ways, but you can't afford stuff if you make concessions as to what you're looking at. Like myself and my husband, when we bought our first place, I was working at the bank. I wasn't making six figures, nor was my husband. He was a junior designer working at a firm at the time, but we bought what we can afford, which was like a shitty 1970s townhouse. I'll never forget. It had a green kitchen and a pink bathroom. It was one bathroom, Ron, like one bathroom, this old crappy townhouse. But that's what we could afford. And we bought what we could afford and we put sweat equity in it.
When was that?
Build up the equity.
How long ago was that?
That was back in the 90s. That was probably late 90s. Late 90s.
Late 90s. Okay. So late 90s, statistically in southwestern Ontario, that property probably cost you somewhere between 3.5 and 4 times your income. Does that sound about right? Your
That sounds about right.
Income.
I know where you're going with this right now. I know the stats
folks,
too.
We're at 8 to 10 fucking times income now. Get into the average house in Southwestern Ontario and the Fraser Valley and Vancouver proper. That's a big difference than 4.5, 5 times, right?
It really is a big difference, Ron. But if I was a first-time home buyer today and I was really determined to get into the housing market and I wasn't tied into a certain municipality, I would start to look at my options and figure out what can I do to get into the housing market. Does it mean that I got to look at making concessions?
Like Timmins you're thinking of now? Or?
Honestly, if I was 20 years old today and looking at the housing market, I'd probably move outside the city to look to see what I can afford.
To Hudson Bay? Because have you looked at Kitchener-Waterloo in London lately? Holy shit.
Listen, Kitchener-Waterloo is a hot city right now because there's so much focus on it. I know we may get into social media as well, but I saw a TikTok video or an Instagram video, one of those reels, comparing Kitchener-Waterloo to the next Silicon Valley. I think this TikTok reel had close to, I don't know, to exaggerate, like 50,000 likes or views or whatever. It was just overly exaggerated. But I think there's a hyper focus on certain segments out there because of the investment potential. And I do believe that is a problem with the housing market today. Lack of inventory is one problem, but on the other side of it is the amount of people that own multiple properties and how real estate has almost essentially what I've seen evolved over the last 30 years. Real estate has almost become a game of monopoly for a lot of individuals.
Good point.
Ron, you've been around for decades as well. How often in the past when you first started would you see clients coming into you saying, I'm buying another property, and by the way, I also own another 8 rental properties in my portfolio?
Never happened.
It was not even common. It was
never happened. 28 years ago, never happened.
Very, very rare. And, if I recall when I first started lending as well, Ron, the policies on clients with multiple rental properties back in the day, you had 2. If I remember correctly, back in the day when I started at BMO, anything above that, you automatically went to the commercial realm. Yep. So I did read your post, and we're on the same page.
Back there. We may be heading back there eventually. Yeah. Oh, by the way, are you excited about your old alma mater coming back to the broker channel?
About BMO coming back?
BMO's back. Yeah.
They
announced it to their road reps yesterday.
I know they announced it to their road reps yesterday. I saw Instagram blowing up with all the different,
so you would know some of them. So were they bitching and moaning, and what was the attitude of some of the BMO reps?
I think knowing BMO for many years and working there in the past and their sort of mindset and their sentiment, the way I describe them, they're kind of like the shy girl at the high school dance. They're all dressed up and ready to go on the dance floor, but they're not quite ready to get on the dance floor. They want to get on when the music is right or the timing's right, or the crowd is just right. So I'm not surprised that it's been a slow roll coming out. But I'm hearing conflicting things. I know the rumor on social medias are coming out at the end of this year. What I've heard, hold on.
Really end. Beginning of next year, yeah.
What I've heard from my sources is no, it's more like Q3 of 2024.
Yeah, they're coming out. I'm definitely in the 2024 camp. I think that what they had to do is they had to talk about it to the salespeople because they had signed a contract to proceed with a third-party originator. And they also know there's going to be some pilots run. So that's, how our business works. When you introduce this stuff, you got to have pilots. So I would guess there's going to be maybe a pilot mortgage brokerage operation going in December, just 1 or 2.
Of course.
But yeah, widespread. They even announced that they weren't even going to go across Canada until 2025, I think.
Makes
that
sense.
Kind of thing. So, but yeah, look, as mortgage brokers, we welcome new lenders to the space. We always do, because I think what mortgage brokerage brings to the consumer, which is, was what a hero of mine who just retired very recently, John Webster, always said the first point of mortgage brokerage is consumer choice. That is important. Instead of going to one bank and having them spend all their time telling you why they're the only good bank for a mortgage, the great thing about mortgage brokerage is there's choice. There is selection. There's there's a wide open array of possibilities. So
And
I like the idea of BMO being in the space. So that's great.
And Ron, I couldn't agree with you more. That was the driving factor of why I left my career at the bank for 20 years.
Because you did really well at BMO.
I loved BMO. I mean, honestly, I love BMO so much. BMO was the only bank I ever knew. My dad immigrated to Canada in 1968. His first account he opened up was with BMO. My parents did their banking with BMO their whole life. So, I mean, I was going to BMO from a child all the way through. I honestly, Ron, thought there was no other, in my mind, there was no other banks out there in Canada. Really, right? So coming into the broker world, it's like, wow, there's other banks out here and they have other policies and they have other products.
Just briefly, what caused you to make the choice when you switched from being a extremely successful mortgage person at BMO to the brokerage? What was the key driver? The key driver is what you said before. Exactly that. It was choice. Mortgages weren't as complex back when I started in the 90s and even into the 2000s. Right. There was no securitized lending back then. Interest rate discounts weren't the norm when I started. Like if you remember back in the day in the newspaper, the banks would advertise. Yeah.
Remember the rates?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%.
Was it the Saturday or the Sunday paper would have the best
rates.
Best rates. And if you looked at all the banks.
By the way, for all you people who don't know what a newspaper is, we'll put on a tutorial for that because occasionally I do get shit on by people who say, what are you talking about this fucking fax thing? I don't even know what you mean. Okay. So we got to be cognizant of the fact that some of our listeners and some of our viewers just don't have a fucking clue what a newspaper is.
What paper is?
Yeah, what a paper
Getting
is.
delivered. Do you know, fun fact, I still get the newspapers delivered to my house every Saturday morning.
Fuck? I mean, that's unbelievable.
I love it, though. I love it.
Wow.
I grew up watching my dad read the paper every weekend, so it's a habit that's ingrained in me. I like feeling the tactile feel of the paper.
Get the black shit on your fingers.
Correct. Reading it, you know what I mean? I love that idea of it. But going back to that rates were rates back in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Then you had securitization, right? And that was what, 2000s?
Yeah, well, actually, we were late to it. A guy named Lou Ranieri in New York invented securitization at, I believe it was a company that's gone now, Salomon Brothers. He invented it at Salomon Brothers back in the 1980s. Invented it. It took a while to get here because, like everything else, it runs a little slow. Stuff goes. It took a while to take off in the States too, but it really ripped in the States. Their mortgage scenarios are different than ours because, of course, we have national banks. What a lot of people don't realize is that up until the last 18 years, a bank could only operate in one state in the union.
Right.
Like that only changed a couple of decades ago.
Right.
So if you were in a state where there was a jillion old people like Maine and Vermont, everybody was old. Okay. And they all wanted to put money into GICs, right? They want certificates of deposit. They all wanted money in savings accounts. They want a good savings result. And nobody in Vermont was taking a new mortgage because they just lived in their parents' house. And when the parents died, they lived. It was great. There was no mortgage activity in some of these states. Okay. And some of the states that were heavy on agriculture, like Wyoming, there's no mortgage activity. I mean, you just inherited your dad's farm. Okay.
Right.
And then there's the states that really had huge mortgage activity, like the growing states like Texas and Florida and all those places. And they didn't have any savings. They didn't have anybody, with money in the bank. Right. They had a whole shit ton of people who wanted mortgages. And that's what developed the mortgage brokerage industry, the companies and then securitization made it work. Made it work. Securitization caused the ability to move money from Vermont, in billions of dollars, Vermont to Florida, because the people had the money in Vermont and New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and people in Florida needed mortgages. So that's the story of securitization's success. It took right off. Eventually, it blew up like fucking Hiroshima in 2008 when they all went crazy in the States.
While all hell broke loose?
Yeah, when all hell broke loose, that's like, and it's really simple. For all those people who want to know how it worked, it's like this. If you were a bank and you could sell off the mortgages and the responsibility for the mortgages and hand a big steaming pile of crap mortgages to the Norwegian Wealth Fund, Okay. And they were stuck with them. All right.
But remember, they packaged it with a pretty bow.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And by the way, all of the asshole credit rating agencies, which still exist and emerged unscathed and never even fined, assigned those piece of shit mortgage books AAA ratings. So the poor Norwegians were just gobbling them up. And yeah, that we could talk about that for an hour. But like it was always different in Canada because Canada, from Confederation, had a national banking system.
Right.
Like, the people, the Bank of Montreal sent people across Canada on the train to open branches in every time the new city developed, new town developed, they just sent people out to open the branches because it was a national banking system.
Oh, yeah. No, Ron, my business partner, Glenn, started off on doing that. And so he would ride, fun fact, they would have buses that they would ride on, BMO branded buses.
What?
They would back in the day. And they would go around and do these launches and opening. Actually, do you know who he worked with was Lori Chilibardo.
Really?
From Home
Wow,
Trust.
wow.
Ask Lori about their days with him and Glenn going on the bus across Canada, opening branches.
Jesus Christ, opening branches.
Yeah,
Oh
but
my
anyways,
God.
okay, let's digress. So securitization.
Yeah, we got a whole. Everybody who's under 30 just said, "What the fuck are these people talking about?"
But you know what? It is. Here's the thing: if you're under 30 in this business and you truly want to be a professional in this business, take the time to understand and learn the history of mortgages and understand the history of the changes of mortgages and intertwine that in understanding the history of interest rates and how it's changed over the years, because that will allow you to have better conversations with your clients when you're trying to be solution oriented, which is what brokers should be. To John Webster's point, brokers are meant to give options to clients and solutions, not pick a product and say, hey, take this. This is what you should do. It's no, tell me about yourself, what you're looking at doing. And understanding mortgages and the history of it will allow you to almost gameplay of where you think things will be in the future. So you're guiding the client the right way with their choice.
Like, you got to realize one thing, friend. Like for a lot of people in Canada, they have a way of dating the world. Okay, there's pre-TS and post-TS. Mm-hmm. So TS is Taylor Swift.
Right.
Okay. Like
everything
before Taylor Swift is fucking meaningless.
Ron, I know way too much.
You have a 16-year-old.
I know way too much about Taylor Swift.
You know way too
much.
Way too much.
I tell my daughters that all the time. I know way too much. Anyone in the industry wants to test me, ask me a Taylor Swift trivia question. I know way too much.
You know way too much. Like I just know there is a Taylor Swift. I don't know anything about it otherwise.
That's good enough, Ron.
Because I'm old. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is as a person who is in an ownership position in a brokerage. The question is often comes out like, what's going on in the brokerage? Like, you've got agents, you've got brokers, you've got people who are running around talking to the consumer, selling mortgages. But the responsibility of doing the right thing for the consumer, maybe the public doesn't know this, but it's 100% on the brokerage owner, on the principal broker. That's the truth. Like, if you don't know that, folks out there, this is 100% brokerage regulated system in the mortgage brokerage world. The individual agents are licensed, but the conduct of the agents, the correctness of their approach to dealing with the public, the compliance aspect, all resides really just in the brokerage and in one person, the principal broker. So today, when there's lots of stuff going on, private mortgage shenanigans, income document fraud that we've talked about on the show before,
poor advice to consumers.
Really bad advice.
Right.
What are your views on that? Because you have to deal with that every day.
It should be the accountability of the leader. It should be the accountability of the principal broker. Absolutely. The cracks that I see in our system is the accountability that's out there. Meaning, like, who truly is keeping the principal broker accountable?
Good.
And ensuring that they're operating on the highest standards and ensuring that their people are operating on the highest standards.
Okay, how do you do that?
How do you do that? Training, management, coaching, having a higher level of emotional intelligence to understand your people, focusing on doing the right thing and not the bottom line and the profit margins.
How do you do that, though? Well, you got it's a pure commission business.
Right.
Brokers and agents, in our case, it's a salary business, but we're one of the few. There's probably only 4 or 5 of us in the whole province who are all salary in the mortgage brokerage space. But you represent what is like 98% of all the mortgage brokers. You represent a commission-driven business, pure commission.
Right.
So how does that work? I mean, like, I honestly admit, I've been away from it for a long, long time. Okay.
Right.
How do you manage that every day? What's the key things that you have to think about all the time?
Keeping yourself accountable first.
Okay.
It starts with you and doing the right thing, making sure that you have the right connections with the lenders and keeping that communication open. I mean, lenders watch what you do. They know what you do.
Do they?
I believe that they do.
All right.
I believe that there's a reputation that's associated with it.
I think
I think the other key thing for us, like Ron, for our own firm, we're not a 200 plus agent firm.
Sure.
Right. And there's a reason for that. I've made a decision myself and my two business partners, not just me, because there's Peter and Glenn, but we don't just hire anyone. We're not just hiring, oh my God, we have an agent at the door. We want to increase our numbers. Let's hire them and hope for the best and train them. There's a process and a protocol of asking them key questions through an interviewing process that I go by my gut and I go by my instinct based on experience of being in the industry. Are they doing the things for the right reasons? Why do they want to become a mortgage broker? And do they take the craft seriously?
Okay. So that's a great thought process. Because what I really want to know is, how do you pick them? Like, how do you decide this person's not for us? Because you have two types of people coming to you to get into the mortgage broker's business. Some of them are already mortgage brokers. They just want to switch. They just want to go from firm A to firm B for whatever reason. And some people are brand new. And I think you'd agree with me, the learning curve for the brand new today is just staggering
Huge.
compared with what it was even 5 or 6 years ago. Okay.
Staggering.
So how do you address that? Like, how do you manage those two types of mortgage people?
Well, the ones that are already established is getting a grip or an understanding. Like, listen, I don't walk around with a sense of arrogance that I think my firm is so fantastic and fucking wonderful that, oh my God, they want to come. You're a $100 million producer. You want to come over? I almost go in with a sense of skepticism. I can't even say the word.
You're wondering about these buggers.
I'm wondering about these guys going, why really do you want to join? Or asking questions saying, okay, what is it about your existing firm that you don't like? What is it about your existing firm that you do like? Mm-hmm. Right now, if the individual can answer absolutely nothing that they like about the firm, to me, there might be a bit of a red flag there. To me, that is someone that is an agent that's disgruntled, and there might be something under the hood, and you do deep diving questions. Understanding business mix. I think some of it comes down to experience. I have been doing this for 30 years. To your point, I was a top rep at BMO. I don't care what anyone says. People say, oh, you get fed by the branches, whatever. I didn't get fed by the branch. I didn't even work in a branch, Ron.
Let me put this out there right now, because what you're saying is so true, but I need to put it out there. Anybody who thinks that being a commissioned mortgage agent at a bank, just working for the one bank on pure commission, is somehow easier than being a mortgage broker.
Oh, fuck
you are so wrong.
You are so wrong.
It is. They have a higher attrition. Their attrition rate is as bad as ours. Okay, like they have a hard time finding the right person, developing the right person, keeping the right person going.
And you're dealing with one niche, right? Like if they don't fit, they don't fit. You have no other options for them. Yeah. I had a handful of brokers. I know one in particular left the industry when I became a broker because I would refer my declines over to them, which is probably at least.
So you kept that person alive.
Probably. I think so in hindsight because they left the business. But I mean, I was doing on average about $120 million a year when I was at the bank.
By the way, folks, that's huge 10 years ago, like really, really big numbers. So.
Right. So, I mean, it's that experience of doing that much volume to understand when you're interviewing someone, if they're a high volume producer, you can ask enough questions to get a good feel. Are they legit? Are they getting good business? What's your mix of business? What's your primary type of client that you deal with? Asking those things if you are an experienced broker. And let me backtrack there. I don't believe that anyone should be opening up a brokerage today unless they have true experience either as a banker or a broker or a combination of both. I think,
Fran, we got people who are just opening up to be private mortgage specialists.
Which is even, in my opinion, even more crazy. To even be doing that at this point.
And suspicious, possibly. I mean,
Totally. Like, I mean, someone like myself, let me go there and humble down a bit. That like when I started in this world, remember, I knew one silo of product. I knew coming in.
But lots of variety within the silo. You understood it.
I understood it enough, but even myself having that level of knowledge still had to learn in this. I can't imagine someone coming into this business, doing 2 years as an agent, passing the broker course, and then just saying at that point, okay, I'm ready. I'm opening up my own brokerage. I'm opening my own thing.
Good point.
The conversations I've had out in the industry with individuals that are looking at doing that is like, there is much more responsibility on your hands. And it's not just hiring people making money off of it. Like, who's maintaining your lender relationships? How are you scheduling your training? What is your foresight for your agents and your people in the markets moving forward? And those are all key things as a principal broker that you need to be able to do in order to be the captain of the ship to guide people properly through it.
Okay, so switch to the other side of the coin. We have people who have never worked in lending before, who want to come into the business for whatever reason. My position is we just don't hire them. We just don't have a spot for them in a salaried organization. We just need that certain either deep sales knowledge or deep knowledge of the mortgage business to start off with, or hopefully doing something very similar to what we have available. But do you hire people who are brand new to the industry?
I was going to say,
you don't even hire them at all.
Don't even hire them. Actually, it's interesting. My litmus test is exactly like yours. I have to see two drivers in there. They either have to be this personality type that I know they can go get sales. We can fill the gap and teaching them the knowledge level when it comes to the lending side of things, or a really strong grasp when it comes to lending, and a solid foundation there where through our coaching and training, we can expand them on the sales size and other product and product development. But if you're not strong at sales or interpersonal skills or emotional intelligence, and you're not strong at lending, then hell no, you should not be becoming a mortgage broker.
Sure.
Then my question is why do you want to do this, and where does your passion lie?
Okay, but let's just be clear. Your position is you don't want to hire them. If they have no deep sales experience and no deep lending experience, you're just not involved.
We're not involved.
Okay, gotcha. Now, let's talk about...
And wait, one last point. Yeah. And full-time.
And full-time. Okay, that's interesting. I got you. And by the way, Fran's right. Full-time, and people get mad at me when I say this. They do. And they probably get mad at you too.
They're going to get mad at me. But,
we don't believe in part-time mortgage brokers. Okay, we don't believe in somebody having a full-time job and just doing this as like a hobby or try to do mortgages for his friends and family. And we get a lot of pushback on that. Both of us do. Like, you get pushback on it too. They say, there's nothing wrong with part-timers. Part-timers are a great thing, and they're a great person. They go, well, look, I mean, maybe, but I know the depth of knowledge you have to have today so that if you really are a part-time mortgage agent, that you're really only just somebody developing leads to hand off to somebody else because you can't figure it out. That's reality.
That is reality. Like, I want them to be full-time, to have the same passion level that I have and the drive as well. That's my goal with anyone that I hire. I believe that they can perform to that level as well if they go through the training and ingrain themselves into it. When you are part-time, you're not eating, breathing, and drinking mortgages every single day. You're not paying attention to those micro moments and those ripples that are happening in the industry that could may or may not impact your business moving forward. And in translation, also giving advice to consumers and staying on top of trends as well.
Okay, that's a great point. It's a general competence issue and knowledge issue that, yes, you may understand the very basics, hopefully.
Yeah.
But, when a client asks you a pointed question or a borrower is unsure of something, will you give the right information if you're a part-timer? And I think one of the things that Frances and I talk about a lot is that there's just too many people out there in our space, in our channel, who I'm not sure they know that much about what they're talking about.
It's not even, Ron, and you know what? I don't profess to know absolutely everything there is to know out there.
Neither do I.
But what I do know is I know where to go to find the answer. And the reason being is I've taken the time again to be full-time professional in my career to build those relationships have conversations, attend networking events, go to meetings, read the stuff that are online, listen to webinars, listen to podcasts to learn from all the other great people in this business. You know, it goes back to what you're saying in the beginning of the conversation. I don't know if I came up to you. Was that MPC? One of the MPC conferences?
That was a lender trip. It was a lender trip.
It was a lender trip? Okay. But I was notorious when I first started. I went up to every single person that I could possibly want to know or want to meet or have a conversation with and introduce myself.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I remember it.
But with the knowing that I respect the people that honor the craft in this business, I want to absorb and learn from them because it's going to make me better in my business. That is the problem with hiring part-time agents, is they don't have the time in order to fully immerse themselves in this business to be the professional that our industry deserves and that consumers deserve.
Okay. I know you'll give an honest response to this. It is something I think about all the time too. What do you think about brokerages that are just fascinated with hiring as many people as humanly possible, mortgage brokerages that just want to hire everybody that shows up, advertise for it, promote it, and promote part-timers? What do you think's really going on there?
I'm going to answer it in two parts. First part, I think it's very, very short-sighted business model, in my opinion. I can't even imagine just hiring anyone. The amount of time it would take to supervise them, train them, make sure they're up to date. I think brokerages that do that put cracks into our lending processes. That is why, if you notice now, volumes are down at lenders, but their turnaround time is not necessarily as fast. And Ron, I'm sure you've had conversations you do with lenders as well. One of the biggest issues that they're facing today is the amount of deals that are coming in that are highly incompetent, because what happens is part-time brokers get desperate and they try to throw anything at the wall and hope it sticks, which then, has faults in the efficiencies. I feel that a lot of these businesses that hire individuals, I would say if you are looking at joining these places, you have to ask yourself, are you paying a monthly fee?
Okay, good. So in reality,
is this a revenue generated model? Are some of these
operations exploiting new people? Is that the truth? Some of them exploiting new people?
I think that they have to do a better job at training the individuals that they have, and they have to do a deep dive. And if they don't, they're the ones that are going to be part of the problem to add cracks into our system when it comes to the efficiency of lenders and doing their jobs to supply the products and the programs to us. Listen, at the end of the day, Ron, if efficiencies are not up to par with lenders, it costs money, which then translates to higher costs to us, or lower costs to us, I should say, lower commissions, and higher costs to consumers at the end of the day. Also, as well, you're creating a breed of individuals that are transactional. Now, here's the danger of being a transactional type of brokerage, and not, in my opinion, an advisory-based brokerage. Technology can take over at this point over the next 5 to 10 years. If all you are is an order taker, then you're no different. If you look at McDonald's, for example, now they have those self-serve sort of kiosks. They can plug in your order. You don't need anyone standing there to take the order. To me, some part-time brokers are just that cashier at a McDonald's that's taking an order, that are not necessarily putting the craft and the care to the individual and guiding them through the process at the end of the day.
And we have to worry that sometimes they're just telling people the wrong thing.
Totally.
Which at least doesn't happen at McDonald's, because if you actually plug in Big Mac, you will get a Big Mac. But if you're dealing with a highly inexperienced, highly untrained mortgage agent who just is basically somebody who the brokerage talked into separating them from a monthly fee to enrich the brokerage, I don't know if you're necessarily getting the right answers some of the time. I mean, I think that's like it's no different than the service problems we see all across Canada. So I promised you I would get pissed off about something, right?
Well, you can get pissed off about it. I want to hear this.
So this is something that and Frances knows my wife Sharon, and Sharon ends up having to do a lot of the work for
I love Sharon. You know that, right?
I know that. For everything around the house, okay, and also do her job, which takes up 12 hours a day. But the rant that I discovered that I got from Sharon is customer service post-COVID and during, maybe for whatever reason, customer service has just bled out and fucking died. Okay. There's nobody in this country won't spend an hour on the phone just to talk to somebody at Rogers or Bell. Like, it is fucking impossible. Mm-hmm. Like, it is. And they'll say, And they'll just keep saying the same recording all over again. Oh, you might find the chat line is very efficient. Fuck the chat line. Like when you go, you're trying to do the chat.
Press 1 to record a message and they'll call you back.
The chat and you ask you plug one question into the chat and say, oh, you will have to call. Like, fuck you. The call center just told me to use chat and now chat's telling me to use the fucking call center. Well, and that's everywhere. It's Bell.
Yeah.
It's all the telecom companies, all of the TV companies, the fucking government, like CRA. If you have to talk to CRA, you are fucking doomed. I mean, who knows how long that'll take before you ever talk to somebody. Can you imagine that when you look forward to doing any change with the government or any inquiry that you need to speak to somebody at the government, that you know you're going to have to commit an hour and a half of your life
minimum
to it? An hour and a half of your life. Like, what the hell's going on here? Rogers, you're going to have to commit an hour of your life. Bell, an hour of your life. TELUS, an hour of your life. Doesn't matter what the actual fuck is going on here, okay? Like, it's nuts that everything takes so long. It's ridiculous that we run a country. By the way, the bank call centers are a little better. Not perfect.
They are a little better. They are a little better.
They're a little better, but God forbid, I had a customer who told me a great story about he's worried about his amortization. You know, a lot of people are worried about their amortization.
Of course, yeah.
You got a variable rate. You're not sure. I don't think my payment hasn't gone up, but I know the interest has gone up. So guy went to the branch and he said, I need to know where my amortization is at right now. And I need to know how much of a payment I would have to increase my monthly payment to make sure my amortization is restored to 25 years that I started at. Mm-hmm. So he talked to the person he was talking to, and that person said, that will probably take 3 or 4 days to find that out. My friend responded like, you're the fucking bank. You have the mortgage. What's wrong with you? You can't raise your voice to me, sir. All right. So at least let me talk to you, a supervisor. So the supervisor came and said, oh, I understand everything, but that won't take 4 days. That's not right. Oh, thank God. Okay, you can tell me? Oh, no, that'll take at least a day and a half. Okay, this is in the fucking computer. It's an amortization schedule. There's an amortization calculator. Like, what the fuck's going on here? Okay, yep. It's this is where we're at. That way too many of our institutions are big institutions, and that's why in Canada it pisses me off. There's only 6 decent-sized banks. There's just like 2 or 3 telecom companies that run everything. They run the cell phone business. They run the TV business. They run the connectivity business through everything you need on your Wi-Fi at home. There's just a handful of companies run the whole fucking country, okay? There's only five groceries to control 83% of everything we eat, for the love of Christ, okay? Yeah. Like, what is it about Canada that we love fucking concentration of ownership so much that customer service goes in the shitter? Okay.
I think this is my philosophy on this. I think Canada thinks it's just that small little country and has never progressed to big world thinking. And so in their mind, we have 3 telecom companies. That's enough because we're a small little country. And I'm sorry that we asked for more because we're really polite and we're okay. And we don't need to change anything. And we're very hard as a country to progress on things. I could take this conversation somewhere else and we could talk even about digitalization and how behind we are with digitalization. And that's part of the problem is the fact that you have less competition. So when you have less competition,
no competition, no innovation.
No innovation, correct. Then you don't have innovation because it's like, the few that are there are saying, are you good? Are you telecom over there? You good with it? I'm good with it. Let's just both be good with it, and we don't have to progress and change.
They don't even have to conspire. They don't even have to conspire. It doesn't even have to be a conspiracy. They don't even have to have a secret meeting.
I'm not even saying that they're talking with each other. Just through osmosis. If I'm sitting in their office, they're like, I think they're good with it. We're good with it. We're not going to rock the boat. No one's going to do anything. Why is customer service has gone down the drain? I'll take this more from an emotional standpoint. I think as a society after COVID, we're tired. I think we are. I think we went from having to deal with what we went through being in COVID, that emotional stress, and now, jumping almost literally, we had a bit of a ride like, hooray, we're out of it. It's the good time. Rates are low. We all have money. Let's go spend it, to holy shit, we're heading into inflation and interest rates are going big inflation. Everything is costing more money. And I think that is really translating to the frontline workers actually getting stressed out. And that's where my worry is too for part-time brokers that are in this business. I mean, Ron, to your point that you said earlier, business is down across the board about what, 40%?
42%.
Yeah. Okay. So full-time brokers are all, if they weren't smart with the money and budgeting, they're feeling it right now. I can't even imagine if you're a part-time broker and relying on this income, if you're even getting any business or how that's even working out for you today.
Yeah.
So, that internal stress of yourself and your own environment then turns around and blasts out to everything else. It reverberates to everything else that you do in your own life. Like, if you're down in the dumps about your own situation, you can almost give up and you can give two shits and you do the bare minimum at the end of the day just to survive.
You're right. And there is certainly that's prevalent in our society today amongst some people. I'll tell you, I watched this Netflix thing the other day. I got to admit, I'm old. Like I watch Netflix sometimes.
So do I. Am
and,
I old?
And a lot of people don't like this thing because it's about a guy who's like half canceled, like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is ancient. He's 75.
I know.
And he's half canceled. Well, he had that kid with the maid and it's bad. Okay, that's all bad. Okay.
I don't even know the story, but that's okay. You can keep going.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
When he was governor,
before
he was governor of California, he had a love child with the housekeeper.
I didn't even know this.
He cheated on his wife, had a love child with the housekeeper, and the housekeeper kept on working there, had the kid. The kid was in the house, and his actual wife, Maria Shriver, just thought the housekeeper got knocked up and had a kid. Okay, and as some stranger, whatever. But we love our housekeepers, so we're gonna
keep her.
And then like the kid was like 5 or 6, and it came out that was Arnold's kid.
Wow,
so he's like half canceled. Arnold's half canceled. He still does.
Where are we going on this conversation? I'm pulling you back in.
I'm going to tell you where we're going, because there are things I admire about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. Which some people would say, well, you shouldn't admire half canceled people. He's a fucker. Okay, but there's one thing I love about the guy is his quotes about how he became successful, because he was like just a nobody in Austria.
Right.
Like it was a nothing. He came from nothing. Parents were nothing. He was nothing. And he did it all on his own, 100% on his own, okay? But he said, the one thing my dad, who was abusive and mean to me, the one benefit that my dad gave me is he relentlessly told me as a kid, from the time I can remember, he said, Arnold, be useful. Like, go out, put one foot in front of the other, and contribute to society, work, do something positive, be useful. Okay, that's what my dad taught me. And that's what Arnold kept saying. So that's what we got to do. We got to go out and be useful. Okay. So I love that idea. I love the idea. And I understand what you're saying. I relate to what you're saying. The people in those call centers may feel that they're, the times are tough. But damn it, like blame the bosses too. Be useful, bosses. Make sure the job's getting done. Okay.
Listen, I agree with you. I went out to one of our lender partners a couple of weeks ago to do a fireside chat with their renewals department on how to have conversations today with renewals coming in, because these clients are calling in and it's like, my renewal rate is what? Like, woo, right? Like, how do you navigate those conversations? And through that fireside chat, what the organization realized is they had to start to change how long that these individuals were supposed to take on a call. So if you've ever worked in a call center, they
reward fast performance.
Correct.
Yeah.
They reward fast performance, right? Like make the call, get them renewed, sign them up, get them out. You're not, hand holding them, having a conversation. You're right. The hires up now have to start to realize, and this organization they're going to start to make changes, is allowing these call centers to have more time, to have more of those in-depth conversations conversations, because we're heading into times where people are highly emotional and they need to understand that the person on the other end cares. That's it. Like human beings, it's very simple. We all want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be understood. And when times are tough, we want even more to be seen, heard, and understood. So during these times right now, if you have issues with your cell phone, well, that's highly stressful, especially if you need it for something for a business.
Highly stressful.
Right. So there's a skill set that's involved of understanding and having those conversations, and it takes time. And that's what brokers have to understand is take the time to have the conversations, understand emotional intelligence, understand emotional reactions, learn not to internalize stuff, and learn to provide solutions to your clients and listen. Make them feel seen, heard, and understood.
Absolutely true. Frances, I could talk all day, but we're at time, and I just want to thank you for coming in. I constantly enjoy talking to people who are smart in the mortgage brokers industry. We've known each other a long time. Really appreciate you coming in. Really appreciate you being on the pod, and thanks for your contribution. I really appreciate it. And by the way, folks, Frances Hinojosa, Tribe Financial, she is somebody who really contributes to our industry. Thank you, Frances.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate every conversation I have with you. I'm going to end it off this way, make you feel uncomfortable. I do it every time. I love you, my friend, and thank you so much.
I gotta run. All right. Thanks. Next time, folks.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.